All right, let's talk about something people seriously underestimate in 80s music history. The Go-Go's didn't just break through the music industry, they fought their way through it, and not in a clean, polished Hollywood way, more like getting thrown into a scene that didn't want them there. Before MTV, before the hits, before We Got the Beat and Our Lips Are Sealed blew up everywhere, the Go-Go's were coming straight out of the late 70s LA punk scene, and that scene wasn't friendly. It wasn't polished, it wasn't industry ready. It was loud, chaotic, male-dominated, and brutally competitive. And into that world walks an all-female band that not only plays, but writes and performs their own material. And immediately, they don't get treated like just another band. They get treated like something that has to be tested. Now here's the part people gloss over when they talk about the early 80s punk and post-punk circuit. If you were accepted hard. If you weren't, you got pushed to the edge fast. And female-fronted or all-female bands in that environment were constantly fighting two battles at once, proving they could actually play and proving they even belonged on stage in the first place. Not because they couldn't perform, because the expectation was already set before they even plugged in. That's the reality the Go-Go's walked into. When they crossed over to the UK early in their career, things escalated. The UK live scene at the time, especially in punk and ska crowds, had a reputation for being rough. We're talking aggressive crowds, heavy drinking culture, and a very hostile prove yourself or get torn apart atmosphere. And the Go-Go's, they got dropped right into the middle of it. Reports from that era describe audiences that were openly hostile towards them, not just skeptical, hostile. Sexist chants from the crowd, including jeering like, "Show us your tits," and accounts from the period also describe objects being thrown at them and spitting directed towards the stage. It wasn't universal every night, but it was enough that it became part of the reality of those early tours. A general attitude of, "Why are you here?" And instead of folding, they kept going up there night after night. Now here's the twist that people miss. It wasn't just the audience, it was the industry too. Record labels at the time had a very narrow idea of what female artists were supposed to be. You were either a solo pop act or a controlled girl group built by producers. An all-female rock band writing and performing their own music, that didn't quite fit the system. So the early response wasn't excitement, it was dismissal. Labels passing, executives not taking meetings seriously. The general vibe of this isn't going to work, and that kind of rejection hits different when it's not just one person saying it.
How many proverbial doors were slammed in your faces?
Every door.
All the record executives were telling you,
well, they wouldn't sign us because we were women or girls. We were girls then.
It's the entire industry, the system echoing the same thing. Eventually, they did get their shot through independent channels. And that's where everything flips. Because when they finally get the right backing and the right release, the Go-Go's don't just succeed, they explode. Beauty and the Beat hits #1 on a Billboard charts. And just like that, the same industry that didn't want them suddenly has to explain how they missed it. And that's when the narrative starts to shift. Because success forces revision. Suddenly, they're not just a novelty idea that might not work. They're a groundbreaking all-female rock group that did something the industry didn't think was possible. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough, because while the Go-Go's are blowing up, while the album's climbing, while MTV is pushing the image, there's pressure building behind the scenes, real pressure, especially for Belinda Carlisle, because the same industry that didn't take them serious at first now suddenly cares a lot about how they look, and not in a normal way. Belinda was constantly described in the press with words like cute and chubby or pretty and plump. Not her voice, not her performance, not the fact that she just fronted a #1 band. The focus was about her body over and over. And that kind of shit really gets in your head. She talked about how it messed with her mentally, how it pushed her into an eating disorder, how it made her start using drugs just to stay thin enough to meet expectations that kept shifting. Think about that for a second. You finally make it, you beat the system, and now the system just changes the rules on you. At one point, she was basically told she couldn't even be bigger than she was if she just leaned harder into being a sex symbol, more revealing image, more exposure, less about the music, more about everything else. And her reaction wasn't excitement, it was horror, because that's not what she signed up for. But the pressure didn't stop. It just kept building. And behind all the success, there's this other reality forming, a cycle. Insecurity, control, drugs. Belinda later admitted to a cocaine habit that lasted decades. And when you connect that back to everything, the scrutiny, the pressure, the constant comments and expectations, it stops being a rock star access story and starts looking like something else. Something that was slowly eating away at someone while the world was celebrating them. So when people look back at the Go-Go's and just see the hits, the outfits, the energy, they're missing half the story, because underneath all of that, there was a cost, and not everyone walked away from it clean. The uncomfortable truth in all of this is simple. The Go-Go's didn't just compete in the 80s music scene. They had to prove they deserved to exist in the first place. That's a different level of pressure. And it's the kind that doesn't always show up in clean stories or polished documentaries. But it's there in the background of everything they did, every performance, every review, every early rejection. Today, the Go-Go's are remembered for their sound, their energy, and their place in music history. But the part people overlook is how they got there. Because before the hits, before MTV, before the charts, there was a band getting told in 100 different ways that they didn't belong. And they went out and they proved the exact opposite. All right, so that's going to do it for today's video. Are you a fan of the Go-Go's? Go ahead and let us know down in the comment section below. Tell us your favorite song. And I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.